Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something. How many times have you prayed for an answer, for a sign, for direction, and felt like nothing was happening? How many times have you stood in the middle of your storm, looking up, waiting for a voice from the heavens, some booming declaration that says, go this way, do that, take this step? But here's what I want you to understand. God is always talking to you, always. The problem is not whether He is speaking, the problem is whether you are listening. Because see, when God speaks, it is not always with a loud voice. It is not always with lightning and thunder. Sometimes it is a whisper. Sometimes it is a nudge. Sometimes it is a door closing, a person leaving, an opportunity passing by. Because God knows what you need, and He knows what is meant for you. So today I want to tell you something that can change your life forever. 6 ways God is speaking to you right now in this very moment. And when you start recognizing these signs, you will realize He has never been silent. You just needed to open your heart to hear Him. When God is speaking to you, it is not always in the way you expect. You are waiting for a miracle, waiting for a sign, waiting for something loud, something obvious, something undeniable. But God is already talking. He is speaking in the discomfort, in the frustration, in the moments that make you stop and ask yourself, why does this not feel right anymore? That heaviness in your spirit, that tension in your chest, that feeling in your gut that says something is off, that is not just life, that is God moving. That is God trying to get your attention, trying to tell you, my child, this is not for you anymore. I have something better. I need you to trust me. But too many times we ignore it. We push through. We convince ourselves that it is just stress, just pressure, just life being life. We hold on to things that are breaking us. We stay in places that are draining us. We force ourselves to fit into situations that no longer feel like home. But let me tell you something. When God is making you uncomfortable, He is not punishing you. He is pushing you. He is shifting you. He is elevating you. He is preparing you for something greater. That discomfort is not a curse. It is a blessing. It is a divine warning, a holy redirection, a spiritual wake-up call telling you that you are meant for more. See, when you start feeling uncomfortable in a place where you once felt secure, that is God saying it is time to move. When a job that once brought you joy now leaves you exhausted. When a friendship that once felt like family now feels forced. When a dream you once chased with passion now feels empty, that is not just life-changing, that is God changing you. He is stretching you. He is making room for what is next. He is telling you, I did not bring you this far to stay the same. You are growing, and growth is uncomfortable. Elevation is uncomfortable. Becoming who you are meant to be will never feel easy, because if it was easy, everyone would do it. But here is where most people get stuck. They feel the discomfort, they feel the shift, they know something is not right, but instead of moving, they cling tighter. They hold on, they resist, they fight against the very thing God is trying to do in their life. And that is why so many people feel stuck, not because God is not answering, but because they are refusing to listen. You cannot ask God to take you to the next level and then refuse to leave the level you are on. You cannot pray for a breakthrough and then be afraid to break away from what is no longer serving you. Sometimes God will let you get so uncomfortable that you have no choice but to move. He will let the job drain you. He will let the relationship break you. He will let the situation frustrate you, not because He wants to hurt you, but because He knows that without that discomfort, you would stay exactly where you are. And where you are is not where you are meant to be. You were never meant to settle. You were never meant to shrink yourself to fit into places you have outgrown. You were never meant to stay stuck in something that no longer feeds your soul. So when you feel that discomfort, do not fight it. Do not run from it. Lean into it. Ask yourself, what is God trying to tell me? What is He trying to show me? Because there is a lesson in every discomfort. There is a message in every frustration. There is a direction in every closed door. That job you hate, that relationship that no longer fulfills you, that situation that keeps leaving you empty, all of it is a sign that God is calling you to something greater. A sign that He is telling you to trust Him, to let go, to step forward into the unknown, because what is waiting for you on the other side is so much greater than what you are holding on to now. You see, we like comfort, we like predictability, we like knowing what is next. But God does not work in comfort zones. God does not move in the familiar. If you want to see His power in your life, you have to be willing to step into the unknown. You have to be willing to let go of what is familiar to make room for what is divine. And that is hard, I know it is. Because when God starts shifting things, when he starts making you uncomfortable, it does not always make sense. It does not always feel fair. It does not always feel good. But just because something is uncomfortable does not mean it is not God. Just because something is painful does not mean it is not necessary. So do not ignore the discomfort. Do not push away the feeling that something is not right. Do not silence the voice inside of you that is telling you it is time for something new. That is God. That is his way of speaking, his way of guiding, his way of moving you into the purpose he created you for. Because if he let you stay comfortable, you would never grow. If he let you stay where you are, you would never see what is truly meant for you. So stop fighting it. Stop holding on to what God is trying to release you from. Stop forcing something that no longer fits who you are becoming. Let God lead you. Let the discomfort push you forward instead of holding you back. Because when you finally surrender, when you finally say, okay, God, I trust you, I am listening, I am ready, that is when everything changes. That is when you step into your power, into your purpose, into the life God has been preparing for you all along. And trust me, it is greater than anything you could have ever imagined. When God is speaking to you, he is not always going to send a booming voice from the sky. He is not always going to make it obvious, but he will make it clear if you are paying attention. See, a lot of people are looking for a sign, but they are ignoring the whispers. They are looking for a miracle, but they are dismissing the little moments that are trying to wake them up. One of the most powerful ways God speaks is through people, through the ones he places in your path, through the ones who suddenly enter your life with a message you did not even know you needed. But here is where you have to be careful, because not everyone around you is there to guide you. Not everyone speaking to you is speaking for God. Some people are distractions, some people are tests, some people are there to see if you will listen to them over listening to him. That is why you have to use discernment. You have to pray for wisdom. You have to ask God, is this person speaking life into me, or are they pulling me away from you? Because when God sends someone to speak into your life, you will feel it. Their words will bring peace. Their advice will push you closer to purpose. Their presence will feel like confirmation, not confusion. But you have to be willing to listen. How many times has someone given you a warning, but you ignored it? How many times has someone told you to be careful, to move differently, to stop holding on to something that is hurting you, but you dismissed it? God will use people to confirm what he has already placed in your spirit, but if you are too stubborn to listen, you will keep walking into the same storms you were warned about. That is not fate. That is not just bad luck. That is you ignoring the messages he is sending through the people around you. See, when God really wants to get your attention, he will send the same message in different ways. He will make sure you hear it, whether through a stranger, a mentor, a friend, or even someone you least expect. But too many times we miss it because we do not like who the message is coming from. We let our pride get in the way. We tell ourselves, they do not know what they are talking about. They do not know my situation. They do not know what I am going through. Now I know, but God is not limited by who he can use. He can use anyone. He can speak through anyone. He can send a lesson through someone you were not even paying attention to. That is why you have to stay open. You have to stay aware. You have to understand that when you ask God for direction, he is not always going to respond the way you want him to. You want him to tell you directly, but sometimes he sends the message through someone else. And if you are too caught up in your own expectations, you will miss the very answer you were praying for. Think about it. How many times has someone told you exactly what you needed to hear and you brushed it off? How many times have you been given advice that could have saved you from heartache, from failure, from disappointment, but you ignored it because it was not what you wanted to hear? God does not always tell you what you want to hear. He tells you what you need to hear. And if you only listen when it is convenient, you will never grow. You will never elevate. You will never step into the fullness of what he has for you. Sometimes God will use people to test you, to see if you are really ready to receive what he is trying to give you. He will send someone to challenge you, to call you out, to push you to be better. And if you reject it, if you refuse to listen, you are only delaying your own blessing. Because obedience is not just about listening to God directly. It is about recognizing when he is speaking through someone else. It is about humbling yourself enough to receive wisdom, even when it comes from an unexpected source. And let me tell you, the enemy knows this too. The enemy knows that God uses people to bless you, so he will try to send people to block you. He will send the wrong voices, the wrong influences, the wrong advice, all to confuse you, to keep you from hearing what God is really trying to say. That is why you have to stay in prayer, you have to stay connected to him, because without discernment, you will follow the wrong voices, thinking they are leading you to your destiny, when really, they are pulling you away from it. But here is what you need to understand. When God really wants to speak to you, he will not stop. He will keep sending the message. He will keep confirming it. He will keep showing you in different ways until you finally pay attention. You might hear it in a conversation. You might see it in a sermon. You might read it in a book. You might feel it in your spirit. But it will be there. And the moment you recognize it, the moment you say, okay, God, I hear you. I am listening. I am ready. That is when everything shifts. That is when you start seeing clearly. That is when you start moving with confidence. That is when you stop second-guessing what has already been made obvious to you. Because deep down, you know when God is speaking. You know when something is not just a coincidence. You know when something keeps coming up over and over again for a reason. So stop doubting it. Stop waiting for a louder sign. Stop pretending you do not hear what has already been said. God is speaking. The question is, are you listening? When God speaks to you, sometimes it is not through words at all. Sometimes it is through the silence, the waiting, the stillness that makes you uncomfortable. You pray for an answer, you beg for clarity, you want a sign right now, but all you get is silence. And in that silence, you start to question, you start to doubt, you start to think maybe God is not listening. But what if I told you that silence is the answer? What if I told you that silence is how God teaches you to trust? How he strengthens your faith, how he prepares you for what is coming. See, most people think that when God is quiet, he is absent. They think that if they do not hear him, he must not be there. But that is not how faith works. Faith is not built on constant reassurance. Faith is not about getting a response every time you ask for one. Faith is about knowing that even in the silence, God is moving. Even in the waiting, God is working. Even when you do not see it, even when you do not feel it, he is still in control. Think about a teacher during a test. When the test is in progress, the teacher's quiet. They are not standing over your shoulder giving you the answers. They are not explaining the questions to you. They are not holding your hand through every step. Because this is the moment when you have to use what you have already been taught. This is the moment when you have to trust that everything you need to pass this test has already been given to you. And that is exactly how God operates. There are moments in your life when he will step back, not because he has abandoned you, but because he is testing you, because he wants to see if you will rely on what he has already placed inside of you. But the problem is, we do not like the silence. We do not like not knowing what comes next. We do not like feeling unsure. We do not like waiting. So what do? We start forcing things. We start making decisions out of fear instead of faith. We start looking for answers in places we were never meant to go. And that is when we get ourselves into trouble. That is when we start chasing the wrong things, listening to the wrong voices, following the wrong path, all because we could not sit still long enough for God to move on our behalf. Let me ask you something. How many times have you made a decision out of frustration, out of impatience, out of fear, only to realize later that if you had just waited, if you had just trusted, God was already working it out for you? How many times have you prayed for something and when you did not get an immediate response, you tried to force it yourself only to end up in a situation that was never meant for you? See, God's silence is not his absence, it is his preparation. He is not ignoring you, he is molding you, he is strengthening you, he is making sure that when the blessing comes, you will be ready for it. Because let me tell you something, timing matters. You might be ready for the blessing, but is the blessing ready for you? You might be ready for the opportunity, but is the opportunity in the right place for you to walk into it? See, God is not just preparing you, he is preparing everything around you. And if you rush ahead, if you try to make things happen on your own, you will step into something that is not fully formed. You will step into something that has not been aligned in your favor yet. And then you will wonder why things are not working. You will wonder why you are struggling. You will wonder why you feel lost. It is because you moved ahead of God instead of waiting for Him to open the right doors. So, what do you do when God is silent? You keep going, you keep praying, you keep believing. You do not stop trusting just because you cannot hear Him. You do not stop working just because you do not see immediate results. Because sometimes the silence is where your faith is truly tested. Sometimes the silence is where your strength is built. Sometimes the silence is where you learn how to trust Him, even when you do not understand what He is doing. And when the time is right, when the preparation is complete, when you have learned the lessons you needed to learn, that is when everything will start to make sense. That is when you will look back and realize that God was never silent. He was speaking the whole time, just in a different way. He was speaking through the people He placed around you. He was speaking through the obstacles He allowed you to face. He was speaking through the closed doors that were protecting you from something you did not see. God does not waste anything. Every delay has a purpose. Every silence has a lesson. Every waiting period is an opportunity to grow. So stop thinking that just because He is not answering the way you expected, that He is not answering at all. Stop thinking that just because you cannot see the outcome, that the outcome is not coming. Because the truth is, when God is silent, that is when He is doing His deepest work. That is when He is preparing you for something greater than you can imagine. But you have to be patient, you have to trust Him, you have to believe that just because you do not hear Him does not mean He is not speaking. When God is talking to you, sometimes it is not through the things you expect. It is not always a booming voice from the sky. It is not always a dream with a clear message. It is not always a moment where everything makes perfect sense. Sometimes God talks to you through the struggles, through the hardships, through the things you wish were not happening. And if you are not careful, you will miss it. You will be so focused on getting out of the situation that you forget to ask what you are supposed to learn from it. You will be so busy complaining about what is going wrong that you fail to see how God is using it to shape you, to mold you, to strengthen you. See, people want God to talk to them, but they do not want to go through anything that requires them to listen. They want direction, but they do not want difficulty. They want wisdom, but they do not want wounds. But sometimes the lesson is in the struggle. Sometimes the pain is the process. Sometimes what you are going through is not meant to break you. It is meant to teach you something that you could not have learned any other way. And if you run from it, if you try to escape it, if you fight against it instead of leaning into it, you will miss the very thing that God is trying to tell you. Think about it. How many times have you looked back on a hard season in your life and realized that if it had not been for that struggle, you would not be as strong as you are today? How many times have you gone through something painful, something you did not understand in the moment, only to later see how it was setting you up for something greater? But in the moment, it did not feel like that. In the moment, it felt like God had abandoned you. It felt like you were alone. It felt like nothing was working out. That is because sometimes God's voice is found in the storm, not in the silence. Sometimes He speaks through the very thing that is shaking you, through the very thing that is testing you, through the very thing that feels like it is breaking you. But most people do not want to hear that. They want the easy path, they want the shortcut, they want the blessing without the battle. But you cannot get to the blessing without going through the battle. You cannot walk into your purpose without facing the obstacles that prepare you for it. You cannot receive the promise without enduring the process. And the process is not always comfortable. The process does not always feel good. The process will stretch you. It will test you. It will take you to places that you do not want to go. But that is where the growth happens. That is where you learn what you are truly made of. That is where you develop the faith, the patience, the wisdom, the character that you are going to need for what God has in store for you. See, people ask for strength, but they do not want to go through anything that requires them to be strong. People ask for wisdom, but they do not want to go through anything that teaches them hard lessons. People ask for elevation, but they do not want to climb the mountain that gets them there. But it does not work like that. If you want to be strong, you have to be tested. If you want wisdom, you have to go through experiences that require you to learn. If you want elevation, you have to be willing to put in the work, to endure the process, to trust that even when it is hard, even when it does not make sense, God is still in control. Because let me tell you something, what you are going through right now is not for nothing. That pain, that struggle, that difficulty is not wasted. God is using it. He is shaping you. He is preparing you. And if you quit, if you give up, if you walk away before the lesson is complete, you will have to go through it all over again. Because the lesson does not go away just because you do not want to learn it. The process does not stop just because you do not like it. You either go through it now or you repeat it later. But either way, you are going to have to face it. So instead of running from it, lean into it. Instead of asking why this is happening to you, ask what this is teaching you. Instead of trying to rush out of it, trust that God's timing is perfect. Trust that when the lesson is complete, when the process has done what it was meant to do, when you have grown into the person you need to be, that is when the breakthrough will come. That is when the doors will open. That is when everything will start to make sense. Because the truth is, you are not being punished, you are being prepared. You are not being abandoned, you are being positioned. You are not being broken, you are being built. And if you can hold on, if you can stay faithful, if you can trust that even this storm, even this hardship, even this pain is working for your good, then you will come out of it stronger, wiser, better than you ever were before. When God is talking to you, He will remove certain people from your life. And at first you may not understand it. You may fight it. You may question it. You may try to hold on to people that God is trying to pull away from you. But when God is moving, when He is shifting things, when He is preparing you for something greater, there are some people who cannot go with you. There are some relationships that are meant to end, some connections that are meant to be broken, some friendships that are only for a season. But the problem is, too many people try to hold on to what God is trying to take away. Too many people are afraid to let go, afraid to be alone, afraid to step into the unknown without the comfort of the people they are used to. But what if I told you that sometimes isolation is elevation? Sometimes separation is preparation. Sometimes God has to pull you away from certain people so that He can work on you, so that He can grow you, so that He can put you in a position to receive the blessings He has for you. See, you cannot take everybody with you. You cannot elevate while still holding on to people who are pulling you down. You cannot step into your purpose while still surrounding yourself with people who do not believe in you, who do not support you, who do not have the same vision, the same mindset, the same hunger for growth. And the truth is, some people are comfortable with where they are. Some people do not want to grow, do not want to change, do not want to do the work that is required to go to the next level. And if you are not careful, you will let their comfort keep you stagnant. You will let their fears stop you from taking that leap of faith. You will let their negativity, their doubt, their small-minded thinking keep you from stepping into the destiny that God has prepared for you. But let me tell you something. When God is trying to separate you, do not fight it. When people start walking away, when relationships start shifting, when you find yourself feeling alone, that is not the time to panic. That is the time to pay attention. That is the time to ask God what He is doing, to ask Him what He is preparing you for, to ask Him what He is removing from your life so that He can make room for what is next. Because every time God takes something away, He replaces it with something better. Every time He closes a door, He is preparing to open one that you never even saw coming. Every time He removes someone from your life, He is making space for someone who is meant to be there. Someone who will push you, challenge you, support you in ways that the people from your past never could. But you have got to trust Him. You have got to trust that He sees what you cannot see. You have got to trust that He knows what is ahead, that He is removing people now because He sees the obstacles they would create later. He is pulling you away now because He knows that if you stay connected to the wrong people, you will miss what He has for you. And that is the thing. Too many people miss their blessing because they refuse to let go of what is for. Too many people settle for less than they deserve because they are afraid to be alone. Too many people delay their destiny because they are holding on to relationships that were never meant to last. But I am telling you, if you want to go higher, if you want to grow, if you want to become everything that God has called you to be, you have got to be willing to let go. You have got to be willing to trust the process, to trust that even if it hurts, even if it feels lonely, even if you do not understand it right now, it is all working for your good. Because the truth is, you cannot receive what is next if your hands are still full of what was. You cannot step into the future if you are still clinging to the past. You cannot walk in purpose while still holding on to the people who were never meant to walk that path with you. And I know it is not easy. I know that when people leave, when friendships fade, when relationships end, it can feel like something is being taken from you. It can feel like a loss, like a setback, like you are being punished. But what if it is not punishment? What if it is protection? What if God is not taking something away? What if He is making space for something greater? What if He is setting you apart, setting you up, positioning you for something that is so much bigger than what you could ever imagine? Because here's the thing, the people who are meant to be in your life will be there. The ones who are supposed to walk with you will walk with you. The ones who are aligned with your purpose, who are supposed to grow with you, who are supposed to be part of your journey, they will stay. But the ones who cannot handle where God is taking you, the ones who do not have the mindset, the vision, the discipline, the faith to walk with you, they will fall away. And that is okay. That is necessary. That is how you know you are moving in the right direction. So if you feel like you are losing people, if you feel like relationships are changing, if you feel like God is pulling you into a season of separation, do not fight it. Do not resist it. Do not try to hold on to what He is trying to remove. Trust that He knows what He is doing. Trust that He's making space for something greater. Trust that this season of separation is not the end. It is the beginning of something new, something better, something that will take you to places you never even dreamed possible. When God is talking to you, He will give you peace in the middle of chaos. You could be standing in the middle of a storm, everything around you falling apart, but deep down inside, there is a stillness, a calm, a knowing that everything is going to be okay. That is not just you being strong. That is not just you being positive. That is God letting you know that He is in control. Because when God speaks, He does not always use words. Sometimes He speaks through the peace that settles in your heart. That peace that does not make sense. That peace that the world cannot understand. That peace that is there even when things are not going your way. That is God saying, I have got you. I am working on it. Do not worry. Do not be afraid. See, real peace is not about everything in your life being perfect. Real peace is when things are far from perfect, but you are not shaken, you are not worried, you are not losing your mind over things you cannot control. Real peace is when you get bad news, but you still have joy. When people walk away, but you still feel whole. When the money is low, but you still trust that your needs will be met. That kind of peace only comes from God. That kind of peace is a sign that He is moving in your life, that He is speaking to you, that He is covering you even when you cannot see it. But too many people ignore that peace because they think peace means comfort. They think peace means everything is supposed to be easy. Everything is supposed to go exactly as planned. Everything is supposed to feel good. But sometimes peace is just knowing that even if things do not go as planned, God still has a plan. Sometimes peace is just knowing that even if you do not understand what is happening, God is still working it out. Sometimes peace is just waking up in the morning and knowing that no matter what happens today, you are not alone, you are not forgotten, you are not abandoned. And let me tell you, when you have that kind of peace, people will not understand it. They will look at you and wonder how you are still standing. They will wonder how you are not breaking under the pressure, how you are not giving up, how you are still smiling when it looks like you should be crying. They will think you are in denial. They will think you are pretending. They will think you are just putting on a brave face. But they do not know that it is not you, it is God. They do not know that it is not your strength, it is His. They do not know that you should have fallen apart a long time ago, but grace held you together. Mercy kept you standing. Faith carried you through. That is why you have got to protect your peace. That is why you cannot let the world shake you. You cannot let people disturb you. You cannot let circumstances dictate how you feel. Because the moment you start looking at the storm instead of looking at God, that is when you will start sinking. The moment you start focusing on the problem instead of trusting the promise, that is when fear will creep in. That is when doubt will take over. That is when anxiety will steal your joy. But if you can just hold on to that peace, If you can just remind yourself that God is still in control, if you can just remember that nothing catches him by surprise, you will make it through anything. Because here is the thing. Peace is not the absence of problems. Peace is knowing that the problems will not break you. Peace is not the absence of pain. Peace is knowing that the pain has a purpose. Peace is not living a life free of struggle. Peace is knowing that even in the struggle, you are never alone. And once you get that kind of peace, once you understand that it is not about what is happening around you, but about what is happening inside of you, nothing can shake you. People can walk away, but you will not be broken. Plans can fail, but you will not fall apart. Life can throw obstacles in your path, but you will not stop moving forward, because you know that your peace does not come from people. Your peace does not come from money. Your peace does not come from success. Your peace comes from God. And when your peace comes from God, nothing and no one can take it away. So if you have been feeling overwhelmed, if you have been feeling anxious, if you have been feeling like the weight of the world is on your shoulders, take a step back and ask yourself, where is my peace? Because God is not in the chaos. He is not in the confusion. He is not in the fear. God is in the stillness. God is in the trust. God is in that quiet confidence that says, I do not know how, but I know who. I do not know when, but I know it is coming. I do not have the answers, but I know the one who does. And that is what faith looks like. Faith is not just believing when everything makes sense. Faith is believing when nothing makes sense. Faith is not just trusting when things are easy. Faith is trusting when things are hard. Faith is holding on to your peace when everything around you is trying to take it away. Faith is waking up every morning and saying, I do not know what today holds, but I know who holds today. Because when you have that kind of faith, when you have that kind of trust, when you have that kind of peace, you will walk different. You will talk different. You will move different. You will not be so easily shaken. You will not be so easily discouraged. You will not let small things steal your joy, because you know who you are, you know whose you are, and you know that no matter what comes your way, you are covered. You are protected. You are surrounded by a peace that cannot be explained, a peace that cannot be taken, a peace that comes straight from the one who holds your future in his hands. So now, the question is not, is God speaking to me? The question is, am I listening? Because he is always there, always guiding, always moving things in your favor. You just have to be still enough, open enough, faithful enough to recognize his voice in everything around you.